we can say the two mantras, pranam mantras to Prabhupada, then the pranam mantra to the Panchatattva, 5 features of the Absolute, and then we can chant the Maha Mantra. We'll try to do it together starting now. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatari Sadhine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much. And so we'll just go to page 1 for the introduction or the invocational mantra that we're going to chant. And you can just do it after me. Om Jnana Timarandasya. Go ahead. Jnananjana Shalakaya. Chakshurun Militanyena. Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. And my spiritual master opened my eyes. With the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Jai Hare Krishna. We're looking at chapter 14, the 3 modes of material nature, if I'm not mistaken. And it's text number 20, is that correct?
Yes, Maharaj.
Jai. Okay. So I hope we're all there. This chapter is entitled The 3 Modes of Material Nature. Kunan etan atityatrin deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukhayera vimukto mritum ashnute. And translation. When the embodied being is able to transcend these 3 modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Jai. Maybe we can repeat that little by little, phrase by phrase. When the embodied being, go ahead.
Embodied being.
When the embodied being
is able to transcend.
is able to
transcend.
These 3 modes.
These 3 modes.
Associated with the material body.
Associated with the material body.
He can become free from birth, death.
He can become free from birth, death,
and old age.
Old age and their distresses.
Old age and their distresses.
And can enjoy nectar even in this life.
And can enjoy nectar even in this life.
Okay, very good. So here's the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Jai.
How can one stay in the transcendental position, even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness? Is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life, even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter, when one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. So, thank you very much for listening. Okay, so this chapter, which is a short one, relatively speaking, is educating us about the three guna, the three energies, sattva-guna, rajaguna, tamaguna, and that is namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. And it's good to know about them because they are influencing us. It's good to be informed about what is pulling you and what is pushing you and what's stretching you and stomping all over you. It's good to know what's doing all of this, you know. And we say gunas. Okay, guna means rope, and these ropes have got us, let's say, tied up in these three energies. So there's three ropes, and we are meant to get cut free from these three. That's what is implied by this verse and others. Another one coming up is Mancho via Vicharina Bhakti-yogena Sevate. This is text 26. Sagunan Samatidhyaitam Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. This is a good one. It says, one who engages in bhakti, devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. See, it's kind of echoing what we were just reading in the 20. 20 and 26 are very similar. But the idea is to get free and to land ourselves in what's called Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatman Nashochati Nakamshati. That's a verse elsewhere in the Gita, wherein it is said that, what does it mean, the Brahma Bhuta stage? It means to become free from hankering and free from lamentation. Nashochati Nakamshati. No? It means to learn detachment from this world. It's a little bit like the wind. Now, today is a very, very cold day. Am I right about that? In Windsor, you've got a cold day. We've got, sun is strong. Sun is very strong, but it's a chilly day. And there's a little bit of a wind, not much. But the way that the wind works is that travels, you know, it funnels through trees, buildings, it swoops around hills and mountains and so on like that. And it does usually a real fast one over the water. And it sometimes picks up various scents, like smells. It'll go over a rose bush, not this time of year, and it'll pick up the scent and it'll carry it for some distance, and then it'll drop it. It'll go over a pile of manure, because we have some farms down there in southern Ontario, and it'll pick up the manure scent, and it'll carry it for some distance, and then it'll drop it. You know, it becomes detached. Nowadays, it picks up the aroma of marijuana. I'll be walking on the street, and I said, "Where is it? I'm smelling marijuana. I don't see anybody around." That's such a strong smell, and somebody may have passed through 2 minutes earlier, and it's still hanging in the air. But the wind and the breeze drops these fragrances or odors. So we learn from the wind detachment. The wind is one of our gurus. In the Bhagavatam, it describes there's 24 gurus. Nothing to be affiliated with the 24 hours that make up one day. But it is just 24 gurus, which are outlined by a sadhu, a holy man who was approached by King Yadu, and he wanted to know a little bit about the nature of that man. He said, I see you are a son. I see that you are very capable, you're together, you're not zany, you even look handsome. You appear to be learned. You've come through town, and tell us a little bit about yourself. You seem to be aloof and detached from all things. So then the sadhu, who's declared to be an avadut, means he's abandoned everything. He explained, I have been taught by 24 gurus, and one of them is the wind. So what are we supposed to not get attached to? These three gunas. They seem to influence us, and they help us in some ways, but we're supposed to basically dismiss them at some point in our life. We're supposed to say, thanks, but no thanks. Thanks, you've helped me through my life. And, you know, for instance, Rajagun, you've helped me to bear children, okay? And Mr. Tamagun, you've helped me to have a decent sleep. Mr. Sattvagun, you have actually helped me to think clearly, to process things well, and to work on my studies and think things out logically without being judgmental. So, but now I don't need you anymore because I've been trained by all of you, and I'm now into something called bhakti. I have transcended. I'm going beyond, you know? And so thank you for your services, but I'm in another space now. I'm in another mindset. So everybody's heard about the four fold miseries. There's janma, which means birth, mrityu, death, jara, old age, and vyadi, disease. These I can also shed, you know. But what is implied here in these two verses, 20, and of course I cited 26, is that we are supposed to go beyond these fourfold miseries and reach Brahmabhut, get to the point where we can be with Krishna. So when we say Brahmabhut, that could land you into the Brahmajyoti, if you're familiar with it. Like right now I'm sitting in a room which has a high arch and it's facing south, and in about 5 minutes, the sun is gonna come into my face and I'm gonna have to switch my chair, okay? So the Brahmajyoti, which is talked about by many yogis, is like a very divine, powerful light and energy of light. And some people reach that destination. It's sometimes referred to as moksha. But more important than moksha, more important is that it's being enveloped in this light. When our soul gets embraced by light, is to cultivate our bhakti, our devotion. That is more important. To cultivate, what that means is love. You know, I don't think that we can have the same love for the sun or the moon as we can have for Krishna, the source of the sun and the moon. So therefore, it's more important to cultivate your devotional service. The modes of material nature, the three guna, like we have discussed before, they're like the three primary colors of red, yellow, and red. No, red, yellow, and blue, sorry. Blue is the last one. So if you take blue and yellow, you get a type of green. If you take red and yellow, you get a kind of an orange color. So you get these kind of primary colors, and by mixing them up, you know, like 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 9 is 81, 81 times 81 means you have different kinds of colorations, combinations of colors, and you get that many different kinds of people actually, or that many different kinds of species. See how influenced we are by the three modes of material nature. Like sometimes in the world of science, they say, okay, we're influenced by the DNA, we're influenced by the genes of our parents from the past. They call it genealogical tables. And that doesn't have anything to do with the type of jeans you wear. Blue denims or not, has nothing to do with that. You know, so we're influenced by parents, by what they have given to us. And we're also influenced by the Triguna, the three energies, which bring us to the point of, let's say birth, death, old age, and disease. We let's say, crawl through all of these fourfold miseries. The Vedas also talk about another set of threefold miseries, and we'll just outline them very quickly. The threefold miseries are, we experience happiness and we experience distress as well. But the miseries are those difficulties or challenges that arise from within, with the mind and the body. For instance, I might have a stomach ache. I ate too much of one thing, so I get a stomach ache. And also miseries come from the mind. The mind can give me trouble. The mind will say, oh, it's such a lousy day. I don't look at the sun, but I'm looking at, so it's cold outside, right? So my mind might be agitated. So this is called the adi-atmic klesh, miseries. Then there's adi-daivik klesh, which arises from natural causes. Severe weather conditions. I understand that in the southern states, there's some kind of hurricane going on. So I heard, I'm not 100% sure, but misery is called upon by nature and forced upon us. And then that's called adi-daivik. And adi-bautic klesh refers to difficulties that come from other people, okay? Perhaps you've all met with people who are just problematic. They are difficult. Everyone's been there before. It could be your boss. It could be your co-worker. Your boss might be a nice person, but your co-worker is just a pain in the back. So what can we do? It'll help us to become strong. Ultimately, we're meant to become free from the three modes of nature, the threefold miseries, and also the fourfold challenges of life. So that can only be achieved by cultivating our bhakti, our devotional service. So some of the shorter chapters like this one are very, let's say, important. And the chapter 12, which deals with devotional service, is also very important. Okay. Let's take for a minute to understand, if we just go back a little bit, and we're talking about the Brahma Jyoti, right? The Brahman feature of God. So what about that? If we end up in the Brahma Jyoti as a result of cultivating some yoga, it's okay, but we won't have developed our relationship with God. Only his effulgence or only his aura. And so what we have to appreciate is in text 27, Brahmanohi Pratishtaham. They're the acharyas and great sadhus in our lineage. They translate that as meaning that the Brahman, or this Jyoti, it is coming from the personality of Godhead. It is coming from God, the person. It's not the other way around. It's not that light produces the form. It's form, or transcendental form, that is invoked, that invokes the light. Yes, the Brahma Jyoti. In the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn about Brahmeti, Brahmatmiti, Bhagavan iti Shabjate. 3 levels of God realization. I know we're throwing a lot of numbers out today, but they are important. A lot of them come in 3. So the 3 are, there's a Brahman realization, seeing God as light, which is very clean. It's nice to be in there, clean and mean. And then there's the Paramatma realization, and that is the fixation on God in the heart. God in the heart in a 4 featured armed form. Here we go again, number 4, 3 and 4, okay. And just like Vishnu is honored with his Sankha, his conch, with his Gada, the club, in another hand, and for more software purposes, he has the lotus flower and he has the conch. Each hand bears one of these divine features. So that is Paramatma. That form, which is personal, lies in the heart of all living entities. And then finally, we have Bhagavan realization, which is what we really, really want to cultivate in terms of relationship. Now, in chapter 11, if you remember, we were going over that. And we were seeing how this feature of the Viratru was very stunning and astonishing to Arjuna. And it started off like in a wondrous way. Well, oh, this is amazing. This is incredible. I see many features, many colored images. I see Brahma, I see Shiva, I see many demigods, I see many serpents. I see many arms coming from you, legs, I see many eyes, and so on. This put Arjuna in awe, but as time rolled on with this Viratru, it got to be unpleasant. Arjuna saw something horrific. It was almost monstrous. And he said, please, this is enough, my Lord. Please, I cannot bear to see this, especially when the universal form showed him that people were being killed, a precursor of what was to be in the battle of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna was seeing that people on the opposing side were being crushed by his incredible jaws. And then also he saw some of his own men being annihilated by these massive jaws coming from the universal form. So it got to be extremely unpleasant. And Arjuna, who had asked for the universal form, got what he asked for. And they said, that's okay, but it's enough now. Can I see your form again? Then the Lord went to this 4-arm form, which is a Vishnu form. He said, that's okay, that's all right, but please, I'd just like to see you in your 2-armed form. I want to see you as Krishna, if you don't mind. I've gone through a lot here. It's like a horror show. That's kind of like what he was implying. It's a horror show. So I would like to see your form, your original form, the form of Govinda. So the lessons from the Gita, the Bhagavatam, and other related texts help us to understand the different features of the Absolute. And now it's important to get to the form of the Lord, the two-armed form, as Krishna, as Govinda, as Shyamasundar, as Keshava, and so on like that. Yeah. So this is what we may be fortunate enough to come to in terms of our realization. First, we conquer the three modes of material nature, and then we should really be set in our bhakti, in our devotions, in our love for the Lord. And once that love is then established, we can then, be assured that we're in the safest position. Safe. Everybody's talking about safety these days, right? Everybody's talking about safe. And safety comes from being in bhakti and devotion. You may not get hit by COVID, although many people are these days, but you get struck by something else, right? That's adhyatmic klesh, miseries that come from the body and from the mind. Funny that the mind can create a lot of psychological problems, And when you have psychological complications within you, no doubt your physical being is going to be affected. So these are very closely related, the body and the mind. And if your body is also undergoing duress, then most likely your mind will. Or if it starts with the mind, when your mind is disturbed or agitated, most likely your physical being will also be affected. So they work closely together. So what we're saying is that let's go beyond the body and let's go beyond the mind and let's get serious about our Krishna consciousness. Then we are actually safe and sound, right? Security is everything. I remember the second walk I did across Canada, and I was in Halifax, the Halifax area, and the news guy from the newspaper came. I forget the name of the newspaper there. He came. This is before cell phones were popular, and he came and he did an interview with me, and that was 2003. So he asked me, so what's the difference between your first walk and your second walk, which is now 2003? And I said my first walk is in 96. I was 43 years old then. And then I told him, well, it's kind of a different world now, It's a different world in that the year prior, we had just passed, let's say, 9/11. We went through 9/11. And that did shock the world. It was like when I was young, when we heard that John F. Kennedy was killed, we were all sitting in the classroom. And we were Canadians, right? But we still like John F. Kennedy, an American president. And our teacher came in, kind of storming in, says, President Kennedy has been shot. We never heard him get so emotional, and we all went, like everyone had the same response. And then our teacher, Mr. Dulon, I remember his name even, he then went back out to get the information, the latest. And then he came a few minutes later, said, President Kennedy has died. And we were all talking to each other. It was hard to believe. It was a shock to our system, to our safety. John F. Kennedy represented security, I would say, to some degree. And so when 9/11 happened, of course, it's in New York City, it's another country, but we are all influenced by what America does, right? What do they say? If America, let's say, if America throws out some disease, we'll start sneezing. So I was explaining to this journalist yeah, the world there's a safety issue here that wasn't there before. And he was kind of arguing with me. So I don't think it's any different now. So, well, maybe Halifax is too nice a city. If you used to live in a bigger place, where things, where everything's more impacted in a bigger city, you would understand where I'm coming from. So safety comes from engaging in bhakti. And Krishna says some promising things. Shuchinam Srimatangeye Yoga Brushtu Vijayate. He says that I will give you a good birth, a good feature in your next life when you come to the stage of devotional service. He promises my devotee doesn't perish. That means that the devotee will give up his body like anybody else. A devotee of the Lord will go through physical suffering like anybody else. But a devotee has a different mindset. And that is, I depend on you, my Lord Krishna. You are my safety valve. You are my be all and end all. You're in love with God. Whereas those who are not necessarily in love with God, it's hard to know what they're really in love with. Maybe they can appreciate God's energy. Like recently, I was interviewed by a girl from the Toronto Film School, and she was doing a short documentary. It ended up being 7 minutes and a few seconds on life after death. So she asked me questions, and she had also, as part of her little documentary, asked questions to an atheist as well as a Christian pastor. So she got two people who believe in God and one who doesn't. So it wasn't a debate, like who's right and who's wrong. What she was exploring is, how do you see death? And I had the last word, which is nice. And at the end, she showed an image of Krishna in the end. That was the last image. It was so beautiful. And I was just saying that, okay, let's say you're an atheist, or you don't believe in a supreme power, but let us look at it this way. I am who I am. I'm a small, insignificant entity. That's what I am. And outside of me is the big world, the big everything, the big powerhouse, something some people call God, but if you don't wish to, you want to call the universe, fantastic, wonderful. But when I compare myself to everything else, I am just tiny. I'm just so insignificant. So that should invoke in me a sense of reverence, appreciation, gratitude, and so on, to that thing which is much greater than I am. So that's where bhakti starts. Bhakti begins with appreciation, love. Okay, the sun is moving, and so am I. Yeah. So devotional service is so important to cultivate. And that's what we have to work at. We're in chapter 14 now, coming soon to an end on this one. And we're going to be talking about a big tree called the Urdhvamulam, upside down tree, which is compared to the banyan tree. We're going to be talking about divine demonic natures. Then in chapter 17, we'll be looking at the divisions of faith, more to do with the triguna, the three energies, and how faith is your type of faith, according to the modes, is determined by which one you're most motivated by. Like some religions basically are motivated a lot by fear, if you understand what I'm saying, a lot by fear. And but then there's the traditions are motivated more by love. Here is God, and he's a loving person. Here's God, he's charming. He even becomes a little child, and he does his little antics. And they endear us as his pastimes. So in chapter 18, will draw us to a conclusion on renunciation, much like chapter 2 does, which does a summary. Chapter 2 and chapter 18 are in many ways summaries of our Vedic philosophy. So what is Vedic? It's knowledge. What's it supposed to do for us? Bring us to the point of knowing and loving God. Vadaischa sarvayana ham eva vidya vedantakarid vedavid eva chaham. Hare Krishna. Purpose of the Vedas is to know God. The Vedas is sometimes compared to the mother. And if you want to know who your dad is, if dad hasn't been around, maybe dad's gone and he's on a work assignment, or maybe he went out to slay some dragons, so you don't maybe know who God is, or your father, who is your father. So you ask your mother, Ma, can you please tell me who is my father? And then one gets relieved if one doesn't know already. It's nice to know. We all know the story of Karna. He didn't really get to know who his real parents were until near the end, just days before he left this world. Oh, such a touching story. Yes. Okay, so those are some points that we wanted to cover. I don't know what you normally do at Dhammakananaparu, but I imagine you maybe do a few verses each time you sit together, but slow Bhaktimarga Swami just does one verse at a time with you when we're together. I hope that's okay.
Maharaj, that one verse really helped us, Maharaj, to understand deeper. And your words are helping us so much. I think this is the perfect model, Maharaj, to go with one verse much deeper.
Right, which we do once in a while, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Maharaj.
Yeah,
Maharaj,
we've been
yes, Maharaj.
in other groups. I've been kind of like flying along very quickly, but we found that everybody wants to know a little bit more as long as you have something to say, and if you don't exhaust yourself. Hare Krishna. Jai, does anybody have any thoughts, questions? Have you been provoked with your thoughts? Yes. Okay.
Maharaj, you provoked by thinking right at the beginning itself. You said there are 3 gunas, and the combination you were mentioning, it's even geneticists haven't thought about it, that we are all like people with so many unique qualities. And then towards the end, you come to that, even in one verse, we can see how our ancient wisdom has answers to all these human beings from one end to the other end. And you also alluded that other religions which came much later used fear. And it's not nice, because people who are at the good end don't need fear. It works better by devotion. And can you expand on that? Like, different people need different approach, and the Hinduism has understood it so many years, so many centuries ago. Thank you.
Well, there's a saying, different strokes for different folks. Have you heard that phrase at all?
I have.
So, yes, there's also different strokes for different folks. And yeah, so I'll put it this way, that some people in some communities, if a forbidding message doesn't come to them, they're not going to change. They'll just continue to misbehave. Let's put it that way. And so therefore, it's sometimes necessary for the Lord to lodge out remarks like, if you commit this wrong, this is where you're going to go. Because like in the laws of Manu or in the Garuda Purana, we'll hear some things like that, some of those kind of statements. If you commit this kind of crime, this is the type of hell you'll go to. Even the Bhagavatam has, Canto 5, it actually talks about this. So, I think there's portions of major faith groups that instill a little fear, like don't get too comfortable. Because the worst thing to have in your spiritual life is to be complacent. It's the worst thing, So therefore, be serious. The only thing is that people are sometimes live in the fear culture. They tend to become very, let's say, impulsive, and also project some kind of disdain towards others, people who are of other faith groups, right? They'll feel that those who are a little bit more in love, they feel they're a threat. Maybe it's a bit of jealousy or something like that. What, you think you're going to go to heaven and you can do it through love? Come on. We are taught to to be in fear of God. And that's the only way. Just like an imposing mother or father or overbearing parents can traumatize a child throughout that person's whole life. But if mom and dad have been very nurturing throughout, then demonstrating a lot of love, then one feels a lot of peace and is familiar with it. Like I'm not going to, address people of different faith groups and say, this group, they're in the mode of ignorance. That group, they're definitely in the mode of passion because they make deals with God. They try to strike deals with God. And we, in our own tradition, Vedic culture, which is the oldest, you've got different approaches. I remember when the 5th canto came out, and if you did such and such a thing that was naughty, you will go to Kumbhipaka. And you'll go to a hell which you'll regret. But for the most part, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna here into following, let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, just behaving, and as a result from that, you'll get moksha shami, mashuchaha. Abandon all other types of approaches to the absolute. Just surrender to me, and I will protect you. I will take all this pop from you. I'll take all the karma, and I'll give you moksha. See, this is a concluding shloka from Bhagavad Gita. Concluding shloka, 1866. Abandon all varieties of duties and responsibilities and surrender unto me. I will protect you from karma, and I'll give you moksha, and now you don't have to worry. Mashicha, no stress, let it be gone. So that's, we have to look at where this Arjuna is going with this, what Krishna is leading him to. Surrender, perform your duty, be responsible for your actions, and then you'll be protected. Excuse me.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yeah, protection and security, all that, everybody's looking for that all the time, I'm going to do it again. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why, but just Mr. Sneeze wanted to come around.
I think, Maharaj, you're getting the blessings from Sun God. The Pongal is actually a prayer to the Sun God.
Yeah,
The main theme of the 4-day festival, and you've been blessed to get a lot of sun. That's what you are making you sneeze.
Yes, you're right. That's a very good point. Yes. And so are there any other points that anybody would like to bring up, please? And if you have a minute, is it possible for us to see you? Would that be okay? Because I know you've all had your breakfast already and you're up and ready to go to conquer the world. If you'd like to reveal yourselves and undo your video so we can see you, that'd be so nice. Because we're personalists, right? And don't let me force you, but Is there anybody who has any other questions? You can unmute and just tell us what's on your mind.
Any other
Okay,
have any questions?
I see a very handsome Puneet there. Of course, I see a little bit of the silhouette, the way the sun is shining on it. And but I get the outside, the contour lines. Haribol, Puneet, how are you?
I'm fine, Prabhu. What about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great, yes. I love to get together with the Windsor devotees, you know. You remind me of when I was a kid and we used to shop at Devonshire Mall. All right. Anybody else? So tell me then, was there something, was a take home for you today? Was there something that we discussed that is of significance to you? Please share that with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Maharaj, I thought, going above these modes and focusing more on the bhakti.
Okay.
So that was
Right.
a strong takeaway, Maharaj, because all the time, and you mentioned very beautifully that, how the three primary colors, that was a nice analogy, Maharaj, because the combination makes rest of the colors, secondary colors and tertiary colors. Similarly,
Yes.
we also just the primary modes are three, but they can be a lot of permutation and combinations. And that
That's
was what I think about.
And because of that, therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, therefore we have many different species of life, different approaches to life. Yes. Mhm. That's how it's supposed to work. Thank you for sharing that, Kadamba Kanana.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad that you only have 2 Ks in your name. Because 3 Ks is kind of on the negative.
I realize it, Maharaj, now.
Oh, that's good.
3 Ks.
Thank you,
Yes.
Maharaj.
No problem. You're not the kind of person who will instill fear. Yes. Do we have anybody else who'd like to say something or anything? Takeaway? Okay. I'm just hearing crickets. That's all. All right. So then, thank you very much. I would just recommend, like, if some of you are into memorizing, maybe you could look at 1426 and memorize that verse. Why? Because Prabhupada uses it a lot, and it's carrying the same theme as today's verse. Mamchyo vyabhicharina bhakti yogena sevate saganan samadityaita Rama Boyaya Kalpate. It's a nice one. Okay, then I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody again. And that this year will be different, 2022. We hope we might get cleared of viruses. I imagine it's going to take a little time for people to get used to a new world. But I think that our nature, our tendency is to be with each other, to see each other, even touch each other and hug each other. And that's not favorable at the moment, but we'll get back there again sometime in the near future, hopefully. I hope it's not going to be like one of those wars, 100-year wars or something. That's not, COVID's going to be around for a long time. Yeah, hope not. The only thing about this the variant is that Om, the term Om is in this one. So people get to say the name of God, All right, so I guess I should just be on my way then, right? Is there anything else you'd like me to do?
Maharaj, looks like that's all the questions we have today. Thank you so much, Maharaj. for giving us
Okay, I guess
association.
people are still getting over their Christmas, New Year's experiences. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll sign off then.
Thank you, Maharaj.
We'll see you
Hope to
next
see you
week.
soon. Yes, Maharaj.
You'll keep in touch with me and let me know when that time comes, right?
Yes, Maharaj, I will.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
Hare Bol, Hare Bol.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
Thank you all so much, devotees. We'll see you again soon. Please take care. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.